The Stateside Soccer Show is now covering Ted Lasso.
If that's a joke, I love it. If not, I cannot wait to unpack that with you.
That's no joke. The Stateside Soccer Show now presents Believe Cast. We aren't talking about faith or ghosts.
Do you believe in ghosts, Ted?
I do. But more importantly, I think they need to believe in themselves.
We are talking Ted Lasso episode recaps. So sit back, get ready for us to discuss all the tea.
You know, I always figured that tea was just going to taste like hot brown water. And you know what? I was right. Yeah, it's horrible.
Hello and welcome back to Believe Cast, Ted Lasso recaps presented by the Stateside Soccer Show. In case if you couldn't hear that from the handsome gentleman that does the intro. But my name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today, as always, is Logan Stump. How are you today, Logan?
I mean, odd enough, I don't remember doing the intro for this podcast.
No,
I guess I did.
I said handsome.
Oh, I see. That's. I probably should just leave at this point. Then it's been fun, Jordan. I will see you later.
He's gone. All right, we are back. Logan's here. How are you today, Logan?
And not as handsome as you, Jordan, but I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, well, no, I'm jeez, I'm doing pretty well. How you doing? Like we care, but how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can assure you, nobody listening cares. All right, so we are talking Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 5, which is Signs, directed by Matt Lipsey, written by Jamie Lee. It aired April 12th, 2023. The synopsis is, with their season in a tailspin, Richmond try to right the ship against mighty Manchester City. Off the pitch, everyone faces their own setbacks. I guess, Logan, let's start off with just like your general thoughts on this, which I'm going to call a divisive episode, because I've seen a lot of backlash for this episode. Probably the most divisive since the Coach Beard episode. So I want to know your general thoughts on episode 5 here.
Anytime anybody does that, general thoughts, I just want to go general thoughts, like How I Met Your Mother. So
Wrong show.
Oh, sorry. All right. Anyway, back to How I Met Your Father. No, I think this episode of Ted Lasso was good. I thought, like, I didn't see any issues with it. I can't stand the Coach Beard episode. I know we didn't get that far into our spoilers, but I think we've alluded to the fact that it's just not.
It's where your Funko's from.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. I would grab it, but the whole tower of Funkos would hit me in the head. And I don't have enough hair to protect myself. But
the leaning tower of Funko.
Yeah, it literally is. Like, I wish you could see it. It's like, it's massive. But no, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like one of the best ones, obviously, but I thought there were some really good pieces to this that we get. And I think we get some really good stuff on Ted in this episode. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was decent.
Yeah, I really liked this episode too. And then I got online and it was like the world was falling apart. Like the Ted Lasso subreddit was ready to jump. It was the strangest reaction, I think, to an episode I've seen. So I did want to bring it up in case of people listening, I guess, didn't care for it and stuff. But it seems like some of the complaints that people have is not enough football, which, to be honest, that's not what the show is really about anyway. People not really liking the Keeley storyline at all this season, and then people saying the Zava stuff was pointless then. So that's the complaints. I don't know if we can say Zava's pointless yet until we see the full season, really. I mean, just because he retires doesn't mean he's gone. He might either come back from retirement on another team. He might come out of retirement for Richmond. He might just do football punditry like Roy Kent was doing. Like there's, we might see Roy Kent. I mean, not Roy Kent. We'll definitely see Roy Kent again. We might see Zava again in the show. And like the actor kind of like wouldn't confirm if you would see him again, which makes me think we're gonna see him again. I feel like if he was done, he would just be like, "Yeah, that was my stint on the show." Like, I think that hints that we're probably going to see more Zava. So I don't know. I just I did enjoy the episode, and I think where we kind of end off on, not to skip right to the end, but is in a better spot. And what I mean by that is Ted, I think, has finally woken up. He's kind of been sleepwalking throughout the season. He hasn't been as involved in the actual coaching day-to-day stuff. When Zava was doing his thing, he let Zava do his thing. And I think now he's kind of woken up. That speech at the end is vintage Ted Lasso. I don't know. I think this is where, like, we were supposed to see kind of like the struggles for Ted throughout the season here, and we're almost at the halfway point, and it's like, okay, he's locked back in. I think he's kind of settling where he needs to be, and I think he's locked back in. I hope he's locked back in, because I kind of miss the Ted of old, so I'm kind of hoping that he is kind of back and present and ready to lead the team again, because they need it. 7 weeks without a win, so they lose to Newcastle, which is realistic this season, by the way.
Yeah, I think the biggest pushback obviously was going to be the Keeley storyline. It always is, that kind of stuff. But I mean, I thought it was fitting because she's kind of torn. And we talked about this last episode, that like we thought that that's where this was headed, was like this romantic relationship. And I think the way that she feels about Jamie and Roy, it kind of makes sense. Like, she's stuck in a spot where, I think she is lonely at this point. She feels like Rebecca's not around anymore, because I think, they've both got different lives. They don't work together anymore. And I think, like, you see that when Rebecca's calling her and she's not answering because she is with Jack. So I think that there's a whole storyline that can progress with this. And I really like her as a character too. So I think that they're both good actresses. And I think that going forward, I think I think this is something that could build into like a more serious relationship, because I think they're kind of both at that point where, they're leaning on each other. They're supporting one another through this venture that that she's invested in with Keeley. And I think that is something that, will progress her Keeley storyline along. And maybe, maybe it's one of those things where, you have that rebound, and she kind of, she's with Jack and she realizes that, she might have feelings still for like Roy or Jamie, and then, kind of act on that. So maybe this is kind of that rebound. And, this kind of puts Keeley back on track to maybe, like maybe a Roy. Cause I always felt like Roy was where she was headed, but I don't know. I feel like this could be that kind of situation.
I think if there's one thing, Logan, that just absolutely pisses me off about internet and how people view TV nowadays, is that everyone thinks if it doesn't drive the main plot forward, that it is hence called a filler episode. I see it all the time for the Marvel shows, for the Mandalorian, for Andor, for any of these shows. This show, Stranger Things. It's like if the thing doesn't move the actual main plot forward, they say, well, that was a filler episode. And I think it's funny because there were episodes in the Mandalorian, like season 1, that people called filler, that actually introduced characters that would come back later, so they weren't filler, and then, like, you can have character-based episodes. And the Keeley stuff may not seem to be going anywhere right now, but ultimately it is going to put Keeley on some sort of path for her end arc, for her storyline to come to a close at the end of the season. Whether it's her staying with Jack, whether it's her realizing that Jack was like the easy answer for her there, but she still has a feeling for Roy, who I think is the one that she keeps kind of harping on. when she was about to talk to Jack about it, and I was like, never mind, like, forget about him, right? Like, it was about Roy. And I think she will eventually wake up and kind of think, I gotta go get Roy. I think that's going to be kind of something that she might come to. Maybe I'm wrong. But even if she then sticks with Jack, then this episode isn't filler anyway, because it ends up with her finding her partner. So like there are things that can happen that are not. And what's wrong with filler, by the way? I feel like we're kind of at a point where we don't allow shows to have either a bad episode or just a fun episode. And what I mean by that is, if like people were really getting on the case of The Mandalorian 2 weeks ago, and it's like, was it the best episode? No. But we can allow some of these shows to have a bad episode every once in a while, right? And then the next week it's a banger, and you're like, all right, cool. And I think part of it is because we're so used now to like 8 to 12 episodes a season. And there isn't a lot of time for misses, right? Because the season is so short compared to when we're watching. I mean, look, go watch How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother, Friends. There's bad episodes in 22 episode seasons. It happens. Yeah. And I feel like with the way the internet is, like as soon as like The Mandalorian or Ted Lasso has a bad episode, people think, or what people deem as a bad episode, because like I said, I enjoyed this one, is that they then think, oh, the show's done. The show is done, Logan. It's ruined. It's ruined. That's where they immediately go to. And it drives me nuts because I don't know. I guess I just grew up in a time where shows could have a bad episode and the next week can have a really good episode. So I'm just baffled by some of the response to any show. This isn't specific to Ted Lasso, but it's just like this increasing thing I see every week, no matter what show I watch. House of the Dragon. Oh, that was a filler episode. I'm like, what? They just killed someone. What are you talking about? Like, absolutely mind-boggling. But to get back on track with this show and this, I think ultimately you can't say this one's filler anyway. We get huge Nate stuff in this. We get Zava just totally ditching the team, which is going to be, I think, the rallying point for the team. So I think the show is still on track. I think everything. This isn't. If you want to know about like a filler episode, it's literally the Coach Beard episode, right? Because that they literally created that as filler because Apple ordered episodes after they had already written their 10 scripts. So they had to write 2 more scripts. So they wrote the Christmas episode and the Beard episode, and they just plugged them in, inserted them into the season, which is why you can't have a lot of growth in those episodes because you had already written the other ones. So to minimize your chance of going back to write more, you think we'll just do a one-off episode and plug it in. So rant over, but I think that, I think there's a lot that happens in this episode. So when I'm seeing people just really saying that, it really baffles me.
I mean, that was a good solid 7 minutes, Jordan.
Was it?
Yeah, filler minutes in this episode that we're recording. Yeah. That's
this is a filler episode of the podcast.
For me. Yeah, I don't know what to say beyond this point. Probably should just turn this off. No, but I agree with you. I mean, it would make like watching, like you said, Friends or The Office or Seinfeld or even like the Gilmore Girls or One Tree Hill or anything like that. You just
shows like, that have like 200 episodes.
Yeah, this is dumb. Why are we talking about Ross's? Well, that would have been bad. Ross's monkey. Like why are we so focused on Marcel? And it'd be like, well, Marcel comes back later on. So I don't know. Like it's so silly to me. Like you said, I think Jordan, you want to know the show that ruined it? You want to know the show that made everybody this way? It was Game of Thrones. I think. Like I think it had because it had the 10 episodes, and like I remember watching it back and thinking like you guys always told me 8 and 9 were the best episodes of the season. 10 was kind of this leak into like the ramifications behind episode 9 and lead into the next. That's the way I feel like it's kind of gone that way now ever since. Like they just kind of compare it to the there needs to be 10 action-packed episodes or 12 action-packed episodes, which it's the same thing. You and I we watched Last of Us. Like it's it's the same idea that they think
That was another show that people
Yeah.
were saying that was a filler episode, actually, and I'm
Right.
like, no, it's not, because I've played the game and this is important right now, but it's not a filler episode.
Rebecca has a ton of stuff happen in this one. I mean, this is a massive episode
Yeah.
for Rebecca too. Like I would say that between Rebecca, Ted, I would say Jamie, Zava, and I guess Keeley. I mean, these are huge episodes. I think for their progression and their character arc.
The only complaint I will agree with this season is not enough of the players. I don't need it to
Yeah.
be about football, but I feel like we haven't gotten much like Dani Rojas. He's just been like the creed. And what I mean by that is like you turn to him for a one-liner and then you turn away from him and you're like,
Yeah.
well, that was all Dani today. That's the only complaints I can agree with the season, but that's what happens when you have like such a huge cast is eventually people end up on the side, like Sam, who was a huge role in the first two seasons, especially season 2, hasn't had much to do in this season, but I only assume that later he will have more to do, I hope, because he's one of my favorite characters. But I think we're kind of kidding ourselves that if we're not realizing the main characters of this show is Ted, Rebecca, Keeley, Nate, Roy. I think those are like the 5 that are going to get the most airtime each week. Jamie and Beard are like right below that, I think. And
I mean, you got
Higgins
Jamie Beard,
a little
yeah,
below that.
Higgins, and then like if you look at it, like they've got to fit more Rupert stuff in this season, and they got to fit more of, I guess, more of Rebecca's mom too, and Trent Krim. Like Trent Krim is huge in this season, so I think that's they add all these characters, they gotta add time.
The reason why it feels like less players, by the way, I think, is because Keeley doesn't work there anymore.
Yeah, I think so too, because she's not involved with them.
She would be talking to them every day, every episode. Now she's in a whole other office.
Mm-hmm.
But we even fire Shandy in this episode. That's huge.
Yeah.
So I want to say some stuff that I called right. Last week we speculated about the whole Jack and Keeley thing, and you were kind of like, I didn't get that vibe. And then it was literally the next episode that this happened. I was like, okay, it's a little faster than I thought it would happen.
Yep.
But all right, I feel pretty good about that. And then
my wife said that felt so right, like that felt so organic, the way that it was built up and built into the show. And I was like,
the
no,
way
that's right.
Jack was looking at her last episode,
makes sense.
and then
Yep.
the way
I
she
like the way they
pops
did that.
in later and is like, I'll go to the game with you, but I gotta do something first. And then they're like hanging out and starting to drink. Once they bring out the drinks, I'm like, all right, this is where it's
That's where I knew. I was like,
down.
okay, yep, this is where it's headed. So I was like, I got it wrong.
And I actually really loved what they did with Nate in this episode too. He
I
was
felt
his
that
old
coming.
self.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt
He
that
was his old-
relationship. You and I talked about that.
You called this.
Yeah.
You called this last week with the waitress, because I said I can't tell what her vibe is. I
That's
can't.
true,
She's like
yeah.
always smirking, and I'm like, I can't tell if she's like taking delight in his downfall or if she like is into him. It seems like it's maybe a little bit of both. But when she sees Nate possibly be real for the first moment that she's seen him, because last year he comes in, he's kind of strutting in, he wants to be the big man, right? And in this one, he comes in with the, girlfriend, and I think she's kind of like rolling her eyes, like, here he is, right? And then when the girlfriend or like the date, right, is putting down the restaurant, is when Nate kind of like draws the line almost, right? He's like, this place is important to me. And I felt like that was huge for Nate, because usually he's seeking validation so much that I could have seen him been like, at the end of season 2, like, yeah, this place blows, doesn't it? And just trying to get on that girl's like good side, right? But instead, He sticks up for the place. He says it's important. He lists every major celebration they've had there, and guess what's not on there, Logan? Becoming the West Ham coach.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? It was making assistant coach at Richmond. He mentioned it. He mentioned it like birthdays and graduations and stuff like that, but he did not mention when he got the West Ham job. So ultimately, that's not a big accomplishment for him. He's thinking back to when he was, a kit man becoming a assistant coach and how important that place was to him. He got the seat that he wanted to be at. He didn't have to pay for dinner, by the way, too, right? He has to pay for the drinks, though. But he says what? The baklava was divine. So the waitress decides to, have dinner with him or eat the dessert. And I don't know. That feels pretty good. This might be something that helps Nate get on the right path. I like what they're doing with his character this season. They could have doubled down on the mean stuff. And they kind of did in the first episode, right? We haven't really seen him spit recently. That's just good. But it seems like he's kind of getting to the point of he's almost like tired of dealing with fake people, right? The girl was interested in him because he was manager of West Ham. She doesn't actually like Nate. This waitress might be different, right? She might actually like Nate for who he is and not for who he's portraying himself as. So I think there's some good Nate movement in this. And I want to know what Ashley thinks because I know she can't stand him. So give me the 411 on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still don't make me like him. You look at what he does in season 2 and you're just he's such a little punk in season 2. But I think it's starting to it's getting to that point where you're just okay, fine. I can still see, I love the way that this show did this though. It's he became full of himself. He's gotten to a point and now he's kind of had this realization that to get to the point that he's in, I think he's remorseful in the way that he acted, in the way that he left, obviously. And now he's starting to think about, it's that saying of it's always lonelier at the top. And I think that's what he feels, right? Because I think his dad pretty much has abandoned him because his mom is the only one texting him, which he has a great moment with his mom. I was so confused about who he was calling because he was supposed to be calling Anastasia, which was the model that Rupert introduced him to. And it's just basically a line of
a practice run.
Yeah, because I'd love to go out with it. And he's so confident. You're like, what the heck? This is a different kind of Nate we're seeing. And all of a sudden he goes, oh yeah, no, I was just calling you to kind of say hi. And it was just a practice run for the call that I'm going to make later. And then he's like, bye mom.
How was it? Yeah. He's like, how was it?
So yeah, no, I think Nate's getting back on good terms. So I figured that's the way it would end up going, but
the waitress's name is Jade. I just wanted to, I forgot her name, but that is Jade. And yeah, Anastasia, but how do they sometimes pronounce it Anastasia or something?
Anastasia,
It's real.
I think she calls herself that. She calls herself.
Yeah, I think so.
The friend calls her that, but I think Nate and then the waitress calls her Anastasia. I think so. It's funny.
Yeah, yeah.
He's a great actor. I'm excited to kind of see if he goes on from this show, what he does, because he's fantastic, Nick Mohammed. So
yeah, he's really good. Especially it's good to see he has a lot of range in this show, because he has to be bumbling idiot in season 1, and then he kind of has to heel turn in season 2 as a villain. And then he has to juggle those things in this season. So he's getting a lot to work with. Really happy for him.
What's up with the gray hair? I'm so confused.
I think it's supposed to be stress.
Okay.
Because your hair does turn gray, I think the more stress you have. So, or that's an old wives' tale. I don't know. But I think it's supposed to be that he jumps from season 2 to season 3 becoming a manager, and it is gray.
Snow White, it's full on gray, and the actor doesn't have gray hair, so it's
Snow White has black hair.
Well, that's true. Sorry. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So they lose to Manchester City 4-0. I saw this coming, by the way. Um, things are not going right. Zava left them. They had no clue until game day, right? Where Zava was. The announcers are like, this is weird putting Colin in for Zava. I'm like, has it not gotten out that he's he's not there? But yeah, I guess they just thought Ted was benching him. I guess I don't know until it came out later of his retirement. But what's he focusing on? His avocado farm? Is that?
Yeah, it's farming, and his wife, I love that line where they're like, what do you look at, Zava? Like, what do you admire? What are you looking at all the time? And he goes, I just, my wife and how beautiful she is. It's so, you wait for him to say something so arrogant, but it's not. It's like completely Zlatan.
Yeah,
Like it's completely
they
like,
totally twisted a bit from what Zlatan would say. We
right.
read one of his quotes about him getting his wife an anniversary gift or whatever he said. She already got it. Talking about him. So it's a little bit toned down from what Zlatan would say. I can't see Zlatan saying like, I only have eyes for my wife like Zava does. But I do like that they made him more likable in that regard. Like he is more definitely more likable than what we would have thought when he's still arrogant on how good he is, but he shows up to Sam's event, right? He didn't like skimp out on Richmond to go to another team, it seems so far. He literally was just like, I've played my last game. I'm done. I don't know why he decided that, but maybe he just figured I can't turn this team around, so I'd rather, or maybe he just lost the drive. It happens sometimes.
Maybe he's gonna coach with Nate.
Okay, so we move on from. Are we done with Zava for the episode? Anything else you want to say about Zava?
No, it's pretty much just that. Like I do like the line that was like the reason why Richmond have been struggling is Roy said if I watch another damn player watch Zava, then I'm gonna let them buy tickets to see the main event because that's all they want to do is just sit there and watch him. So no, I like that. But no, there's I don't feel like Zava's done, but I don't really know what that next storyline will be for him.
Same. Another coach for the team.
I have no idea. Maybe that'd be fun. Add
I
him in
doubt
with
it.
Roy. That'd be
Yeah.
hilarious.
But this kind of kicks the whole like the Roy Jamie storyline into another gear now because they need Jamie to step up.
Yeah.
And we kind of figured Zava wouldn't be around long anyway if we're thinking Jamie's arc is to be better than him, or at least, Jamie still hasn't scored a goal this season from what we know, right? So that would be something had to happen for Jamie to be more in the spotlight. And I know people are saying, I saw some people saying like, well, why is Dani not scoring as much either? Well, he kind of got shifted into midfield, right? He got shifted to the wing to fit Zava in there. Now they can kind of go back to a more natural formation that they have and hopefully pick up some points. We still have to deal with Colin's storyline at some point this season too. We haven't really seen that come to fruition yet. But what else I want to talk about here as well is what was it that I was going to talk about? Losing my mind already. Oh, the Shite and Knighting armor. Is that done with now that we got the person introducing her boyfriend incorrectly like that? Is that done? Is that
Is it
Like, is that checked off on the
Yeah.
psychics
Yeah,
thing?
I think that was like it all happens. The matchbook is there, like it's all happening. But with this episode, I'm just so confused with the whole Rebecca situation now. But I guess we'll find out in due time.
Let's dive into Rebecca right now. So she, yeah. Did we see this guy before? Is he in season 2?
The doctor or the
No,
the guy?
the boyfriend that
Yeah.
she
This
left.
is the one. This is the one that. Wait.
She
Yeah.
leaves him, right? She left him in the
Yeah.
restaurant, right?
Right. Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, because she's
It's a good
bored with him.
callback then.
Yeah. No, she's bored with him. He's really boring. Like
This
he's
is
very,
when she was dating Sam or something, right?
Yeah, this is when he's very safe, and this is the point where Roy and Roy and Keeley are dating, and they go out to eat, and this guy's so nice. He's very boring though. Roy's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. They're sitting there at the restaurant, and that's when Roy gives the speech of like, don't you effing settle. Like, you need someone that'll light your world on fire. Like, don't you dare effing settle for somebody like this. And she kind of looks like, what?
The premiere
Yeah.
of season 2. Goodbye Earl is what episode he's in. I just had to look it up.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's a good callback. I felt like I should have known who he was, but it wasn't clicking for me. And I'm like, I think I remember that happening, but I couldn't fully remember it. That's part of why we needed the full rewatch beforehand. But Apple decided to drop it a little earlier than I thought it would.
My flight to
I thought
Arizona,
right now
I got it all
was
done.
spring.
Yeah.
I thought like spring would still be like now, and they'd be like, we'll drop it now, but they did it a whole month ago. Okay. So Rebecca, matchbook, shite knighting armor. What do we got left? We got the thunder and lightning upside down thing, right? And we got the mother thing. So she goes to her doctor. Doctor's very pro Richmond, right? And he will run some tests. Do we know what the results of the test were? Because I think we see her reaction. We do not hear it. Is it that the tests were positive, like she can get pregnant and she's upset about that? Or is it that the tests are negative and she's upset about that? Like, what do you think here? Because the way that Hannah Waddingham played it was very, I think, like subtle reaction to what's going on that I couldn't really tell. I can't really tell what she wants, right? Like, she did want a family, but is it now like, oh, I can get pregnant? Now the pressure's really on? Is it I can get pregnant? Now this damn this damn fortune teller thing's coming true? Like, what do you think it is, Logan?
Yeah, it's tough. And then I was starting to think maybe she's like having a reaction because like she's upset because she still does, like, whenever Rupert's around, she still has that kind of, he's like still in the back of her mind of like, he didn't want kids with her. And I think, I don't know, I think she wants a family, and I think she can give, I'm starting to think she can. But now she's to a point where she's like, I'm what would basically be probably a geriatric pregnancy where it'd be very dangerous for her. And now that she's this age, she's she wants a family, but she doesn't have anybody to share that with. You know what I mean? Like, Sam is clearly with I think the woman that works in the restaurant or has a fancy for in the restaurant, and I think Rebecca's just out here alone. So I don't know. It's kind of setting up nicely for somebody to come along. I just don't know who that would be unless it was going to be Ted. But I always felt that was going to be a weird. I don't know. Like I never saw if that was like, I felt like they were going to try to play it that way, but they've never really like kind of bit on that as bait. So I don't know.
I think if I'm looking at season 1, I think it is possible. Rebecca and Ted. I think if I'm looking at season 2, she was really hung up on Sam. This season, they've barely interacted at all, Rebecca and Ted, in that type of way.
Right.
So I'm starting to believe that it's not in the cards for Rebecca and Ted. But it was there in season 1. I wonder if they just like pivoted because like the tension was there, and like, you know, again, I'm going to bring it up, but when they go to Liverpool and you get the knock on the door, you are supposed to believe it is Rebecca knocking on Ted's door. The shock is when it's Sassy on the other side. So I felt like that was like a red herring and that they were going to continue to build upon that relationship. But this season, it feels like we're halfway through almost. It's been kind of like stepping back, like, actually, we're not doing that. It's kind of how it feels for that. So again, who is the suitor? Does she end up with Sam? Sam seems happy with his girlfriend that we haven't met really. Like, she's been in one scene, I think. And then, you know, Rupert, definitely she's not going to get back with him. So it's like, okay, who does she end up with? Right? Because she hasn't had many love interests at all, other than those, you know, Rupert before the show starts, Sam, maybe a hint of Ted, and that's it. So I am curious on where the Rebecca story is going. I think she can get pregnant. I think it's led to believe that she can't because maybe of her reaction, but I think it's more of like a, oh, this is all becoming true. And now it's also the pressure of now I have to actually find a partner before my clock does run out, right? Like, I almost feel like it's like this unsettling, like, oh, we gotta, like, that's not the news I wanted to hear. I always thought I couldn't have it after my age and after Rupert didn't want him. And now I do want that. And, you know, there you go. I don't really know what else to say about Rebecca. I'm curious on where they go with it. I guess Ted and Henry, we can talk about that, right? Henry, I knew this was going to be the switch, right? Henry was the one bullying the kid. I saw that coming. They didn't fool me with that. Did they get you with that?
100%. Got
Really?
me bait and switched. Yep. I believed it. I was like, oh man, because it made sense.
The way
like,
that
the way
Ted
reacted to it, and I was like, oh.
The way that Ted immediately leapt to that made me think, okay, it's the other way around. Is how I thought.
I just love this. This was my favorite scene of the whole show when they say it, and then it turns to Roy, and Roy goes, statistically, you know, it's better to sneak into the person's house at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
when they're least expecting it, and then you beat him, and you just keep beating him and beating him and beating him, and he just keeps going. And Ted looks at him like, yeah, I think we're gonna hold off until Michelle's call, but if thanks for that input. And he's just like, you're welcome.
I think we're gonna talk to the kid first and see how everything, like, we're gonna wait. Especially it's so diabolical with the 4 o'clock and the red paint, so they think that they're bleeding, which is something that does happen because you can't process it. So you're looking at it like, oh my god, is that my
I just love it.
I'm laughing because it is such a mind trick. So it wasn't 4 a.m., but I'm driving home at midnight from Joy's school when she's in college, and we hit a deer. Okay. The deer scuttered off. It seems like it was probably fine. I don't know. But it busted my window. And the window, like the mirror was dangling. And I didn't want to look over because the way it was dangling, I thought it was the deer's head. I thought it was the deer's head decapitated on my damn thing. And I was like, ah, ah. So, like, it wasn't 4 a.m. and it wasn't red paint, but, like, your mind can play tricks on you and you're tired and you're not looking at it clearly. I was, like, freaking out. And then I look over, like, oh, my God, it's just the mirror.
That's hilarious. I don't think I've ever
mirror.
heard that story. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that was like 2018 or something.
My goodness. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was a scary time.
I just like the scene
so
too because,
your mind can play tricks.
Yeah. I like the scene too because when he's saying it too, and Trent's like holding coffee and he just drops it. He's like, what?
Put that in the book, Trent. So we have Jamie and Roy. They're going to resume their workout sessions as well. So real quick with Ted and Henry, is that over with? Is Henry back on the narrow with that, or was it too easy of a wrap up?
You know what this did for me? I really enjoyed this too. And it was a very slight thing that, I mean, I'm sure people noticed it, but it was cool because Beard in that moment goes, why are you, like, kind of like, why are you worried? Like, you raised the kid. You know Henry. Like, you know he's your kid. He's your son. Meaning, like, you know, Ted always does good by people. He's like, Henry's going to do the exact same thing because you and Michelle raised him right. And sure enough, he did. Like, we get later in the episode, Ted talking to Henry, and Henry's like, yeah, I did a whole rap apology in front of the class. And I'm like, that's so Ted. Like, that's what Ted would do. Like, that's how Ted would apologize, was just this rap of apologizing to the kid that he bullied. And he goes, yeah, he's fine. Like, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry if that upset you or my, mom. And that was, it was cool. It was like, your parenting has worked. But then you see this moment, and then that's when Ted starts to get like the buzzing in the ears again, and he starts to get clammy, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna have another panic attack. Then he starts to vision Henry going down the escalator with the flight attendant. I think because this was the last trip that he was there, but I think it's a really cool thing. I think I don't want to say it's completely over, because I think that what they're kind of trying to play at is maybe Ted ends up going back to the United States. Because I think he just ends up missing Henry. Like, I don't see another end game except for Ted heading back to the U.S. So I don't know. I think that's kind of what it pointed at.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was nice that he had already apologized.
Yeah.
With a public rap in class. Henry. But yeah, so that's where Henry's currently at. All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on to our employee of the week and Richmond player of the week?
Trying to think if we just missed. Oh, one thing that we did miss. Higgins at one point goes into Rebecca, because I want to get your thoughts on this.
Yes.
Goes into Rebecca's office, and this is after they've lost. I think they said they haven't won in 7 games, and I think it's now 8 with Manchester City. So they're going into this, this predicament of like, this team's really struggling and kind of circling the drain. And Higgins goes, I don't think it's the quality of talent that we have. I think it's something else. And Rebecca goes, can you stop with the formalities? Like, you know me, like, this is not how you act usually. And he goes, no, I think it might be Ted. And he goes, she goes, are you saying that we should get rid of Ted? He goes, no, I didn't say that. Why would I would be terrible. Like, I'd be so sad to say that. But it was like,
yeah, she says, do you want to get rid of Ted? Right. He said, I don't want to do that. Right. The way I just said this, what makes you think I want to do this?
Yeah. That's what the line was. But it was a great line, because it's like, that's that's the way that those guys feel sometimes. Like, I don't want to, no, but I have to.
Yeah, it's interesting because so this is where some of the unrealistic aspects come in. This team was newly promoted. They're still 9th when they lose, when they don't win in 7, right? And 3 of those were draws, I think, from, if I'm remembering Coach Beard's whiteboard correctly. 3 of those were draws. So that means only 4 losses. And I don't think they had lost at all in the season before Zava. So they had maybe 5 losses. They're 9th place. They would not consider dropping their manager, and the fans would not be as angry as they are. We just saw Fulham get promoted, and they were in like the top 6, only 3 spots above where Richmond is right now. And for a while they were going pretty well, right? Fulham, and then they started dropping off again, but nobody suggested firing Fulham's manager. This isn't a team that is supposed to threaten for first place. So or even a European spot. Everyone predicted them to be last. They're 9th place out of 20. I don't conceivably think that they would actually want to make a change, and I don't think the fans would be as riled up as they are. 9th place for Richmond would be a pretty damn good season. I think where I don't blame Higgins for this is that it's 8 in a row or 7 in a row when he's bringing it like 7 no wins in 7. I can see that as like a things are not right type of thing. But the show had Richmond off to such a hot start that only put them 9th. So more conceivably, it's like if they're flirting with like 13th, 14th, you're like, okay, we got to maybe let go of Ted. So I think that's more in the writing side of things than it's believable for Higgins to posit this. I don't blame him. He's the, director of football. He's got to think about it. But it's just, especially after they got relegated the first year with him, they get promotion. Now, what I also saw is people that are unfamiliar with the sport not liking the direction of the show right now. What I mean by that is I saw like comments, and I responded to one on Reddit that was like, what I don't like is that Richmond won promotion last year, and they come up and all of a sudden they don't know how to play and they're awful. And I'm like, that's pretty standard for newly promoted teams. How many times, for people that don't know, you see like Norwich win like 100 points in the championship. They go up and they like bottom the whole season, right? That was like a couple years ago. Just immediately back down. Fulham has been a yo-yo club until this year. It happens. It's like, it's a totally different level in the championship compared to the Premiership. And they also didn't make any additions except for Zava, right? And that worked well and got them in the top half. But then they all started just falling back down again. That it's going to probably take, in a real life situation, which this show is not, they would have brought in 5 to 6 new players. They would have sold some, and they'd be like, all right, we're going to try to, keep this, we have to add some Premiership level players. Because in realism as well, as soon as they dropped to the championship, they would have sold a bunch of players as well. So and you can't do that in a TV show. You can't have your whole cast change every season. So I get why they don't do that. But I just saw some people being like, that's not realistic. And I'm like, actually, it's very realistic. So it's unfortunate that it's that realistic, that teams struggle when they come up sometimes. But like I said, it's just a totally different level of playing field. What was I going to say? I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. But yeah, so, and I saw some people saying that they're going to riot if they don't win the whole effing thing. I don't think that's conceivable with where we're at in the show too. They got to be almost mid-season, and they've in 9th place. Like if they win the whole thing, that is totally fairyland, right? Which is fine if that's the way they want to go. I'll be happy for the players and for the team. But I think it's not like, I want to stress this for people. I know we put it on our soccer feed, so of course soccer fans listen to it, but we do have it on another feed that is just these episodes. So if you're not familiar with the game, there is no playoffs. I think they mentioned that in season 1, right? But there's no playoffs. Or they mentioned it in season 2 because there are playoffs to get promoted. But there are no playoffs in this. So for them to win it, they have to go on like such a run to get to first place. And they have to get the first place. There's no extra games. That's it. So I think we can almost kiss that line from Ted goodbye. Just because Ted said it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's kind of it's a very naive thing for Ted to say, right? Like when he said that, when I'm watching the show, I'm like, that's obviously not what's going to happen, because it would be so hard for Richmond to come up and immediately win it. The closest thing to that would be 2016 Leicester City. And even then, that was unprecedented. All right, Logan, I want to ask you for your player of the week.
Oh man, oh that's tough. I'm gonna say, gosh, we really don't get a whole lot of the players lately.
That's what's making this tough.
That makes this really hard. I'm just gonna go with Dani Rojas just because I thought he had some good one-liners. There was a point where he's like, "Are they true? Are the rumors true?" And they go, I'm afraid so." With Saba, and Dani just starts crying, and he loses it. Like he just worships Saba, and it's so funny to me because they're such like Dani's a free spirit too, so it's like a bunch of free spirited dudes that just like are way out there. Like it's almost unbelievable that they exist, that there are humans like that do exist, but there are, and I think that their personalities somewhat hit it off. So yeah, no, I'm gonna give it to Dani just because we really just don't have a whole lot of the players in this episode. So
I have it as Jamie.
yeah,
I think his growth has been great. He's gonna get back on the grind of the working out, but also just like when they take the field and Zava's not there, he's the one that's trying to be like, come on, guys, right? Like we don't need him, which is not something you would expect from Jamie, but like season 1 Jamie, right? But he's really bought into the team mentality, and I think he knows that the players are better than they've been playing. So I'm going to give it with Jamie. Moving on to employee of the week, I'll go first. I'm going to go with Ted Lasso. I think his speech at the end was awesome. He rips up the Believe poster, which all of that. So we might have to change our podcast name, but he rips it up and he's like, we don't believe in believe just because this paper exists, right? We believe it because it's in here. And he's got this great speech about how, you know what? He rips it up. He gets the response he needs to. Sam's smiling. I think the players finally think that they are back on track. So I do think we'll get a little bump up on how they're playing, hopefully.
yeah, it speaks to the figurative sign and literal sign a little bit,
Good.
but also I think signs is the episode's name because also we get a lot of signs with Rebecca, and that's who I'm going to pick for employee of the week, just because I think that Rebecca has a fantastic step in this in her character arc, and I think you're right, Jordan. I think we both decided that we think she is able to get pregnant, but I think she's having this realization that it might not just happen because of where she is in her life, and she's kind of I think realizing that she's. She starts on a high where she's pissed at Ted. She goes, "Are we ever going to win another effing game?" and she starts there. And then in this episode, we just see her just completely come, unglued. And she's got the instance in the coffee shop with the ex-boyfriend. She's got, all these concerns with the doctor. But you see such a real element in life from Rebecca. And I think there's a lot of women out there that want to, but at certain stages in their life, they can't, or they can and they just don't have success in doing so and don't want to risk it. So I don't know. It's a really true element of life that I think doesn't really get talked about in a lot of these shows, especially like this, and more of a comedy and a feel good. But I think that she does. Gosh, she's such a great actress. Like she really is. And I think if you just go back to the certain episode or in this episode, just kind of see with her interaction with Higgins, she's just like, I just don't have time. Like she's so stressed out by this whole thing that's been happening because I think she wants a kid, but I just don't know if she sees it in the cards playing out like it should. So.
All right. Next week, we'll be talking about episode 6, which is Flowers. And it is, here's the synopsis. A friendly match takes the team to Amsterdam, where one night out unlocks truths for many. A friendly mid-season, huh? Kind of odd.
Yeah, kind of weird. Kind of weird.
Is it during an international break? Do they not have any international players on the team, I guess?
Must be bored. I don't know. You don't see this in the Premier League. You see it in other leagues. Like I know La Liga does it.
Yes, Championship does it. Germany does it when they take a break. Yeah, when they take a break for Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah.
So definitely weird, but I think it's fun because I think
Yeah.
I think you
A
got
trip is
somebody's
fun.
gonna get high or something's gonna happen. Like it's the
It's just
Vegas
another
of
weird
Europe.
episode.
Yeah. No, gosh. Oh. No, I think this one actually has the chance, Jordan, to be like some like crazy stuff that we find out and people find out. So
Yeah, I'm expecting maybe the Colin stuff comes out in this
yeah,
episode.
I think so too. Yeah.
Um,
Feelings for Keeley from somebody.
maybe, yeah. Well, it's also going to be, Logan, the longest episode in show history. It's 1 hour and 3 minutes.
Oh, look at that. We'll be watching it tonight.
I'm assuming the longest until like the finale. It's
Right.
probably, if the finale is actually the last episode of the show, I think we're
Hour
settling
30.
in for about 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I would go for a 2-hour episode. I'd watch it.
Well, yeah, I'll watch it.
Make it 6 hours. Why not?
It's the equivalent of watching like 3 episodes. So
Yeah.
why not? All right. Well, if you want to give us any sort of feedback, you can reach us at Stateside Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can email us statesideshow@gmail.com. Any Ted Lasso related feedback, you can also send to tedlassorewatch@gmail.com or Twitter, believe_cast. Thank you all for watching or listening. We will catch you next week when we talk sunflowers.